It was the year 1954. Though the wars of the past had ended years earlier, their shadows still lingered across the Atlantic as nations sought to reaffirm their prestige through scientific and territorial conquests. From the port of Boston on a grey and damp March morning, a vessel departed which, to many observers, seemed far too advanced for its time. We will call her Mercury to avoid disclosing her true name. This ship had been specially prepared for the upcoming expedition. It was neither a great war frigate nor a luxury vessel, but a peculiar hybrid that drew the eye of any expert. It represented part of the sudden modernization that had taken place after 1947. She was designed to maintain speed in calm or stormy seas and to withstand the most hostile climates. The plan was clear: to reach uncharted, inhospitable places, and for that, Mercury had been built. Her captain, whom we will call Edward Harlix, carried the experience of decades at sea. He had sailed the trade routes of the Caribbean, transported coal from Norfolk, and worked long years aboard fishing vessels. Yet what lay ahead was entirely different. Moreover, the expedition was funded by sources outside the usual channels, a fact that raised eyebrows. There had long been unusual interest in that remote region. The declared destination was Antarctica, still shrouded in mystery. The stated mission was cartographic and scientific, though Harlix, deep down, yearned for something more, to leave his name engraved in the history of discovery. But what was truly being sought? Not even the captain seemed to know, or rather, he kept it locked tightly within himself. The crew was made up of 12 men, seasoned sailors, young recruits from the port, and a lone specialist. Dr. Whitefield, a naturalist obsessed with marine life, initially complained at being excluded without explanation, until he secured a place through a military contact. A Scottish cartographer voiced a similar grievance, for the crew seemed to consist almost entirely of military men, and secrecy hung over the expedition like a shadow. The first stretch of the journey was relatively predictable. Mercury sailed from Boston, riding the northeast winds to Panama, where they resupplied with water and fresh provisions. From there, they crossed the Caribbean, stopping at several ports. On tropical nights, the men gathered on deck, listening to the captain recount storms at Cape Horn and the ancient voyages of Magellan and Drake. With each passing day, the mission grew more vivid as they drew closer to the coveted southern latitudes. Leaving the Caribbean behind, they set their bow southward, following the coastline of South America. They traced the Pacific shore all the way down to Punta Arenas in Chile, where they remained several days repairing and reinforcing the ship. The plan was to venture into the Austral seas and reach the edge of the Antarctic Peninsula. But the sea always has the final word, and fate answers to no one. After departing Punta Arenas, the skies darkened and an unexpected storm fell upon them in the open ocean. For 2 days, Mercury was tossed like a walnut shell, the wind howled, the men were exhausted, barely able to maneuver. Yet the captain held firm, eyes fixed on the nervous quiver of the compass needle. The course would not change, the expedition pressed on. When at last the storm subsided, dawn revealed a scene that chilled their blood. There were no familiar islands, no recognizable coastlines. Instead, before them lay entirely unknown lands, a chain of islands cloaked in dense forests, bathed in an eerie reddish glow. The compasses spun uncontrollably. The radios gave no answer. They were adrift in a place not found on any chart, surrounded by a suffocating fog. The sailors murmured in fear, and with good reason. In the sky, beyond the usual sun, rose a second light, a reddish sphere hanging low on the horizon, blazing like an eternal bonfire in the heavens. One of the men raised his binoculars, but found no explanation. Some fell to their knees, convinced they were witnessing an omen of doom. The atmosphere soured, heavy with dread, and that feeling would not easily leave them. Captain Harlix withdrew silently to his cabin and consulted the nautical charts. No map marked such islands. None spoke of a second sun. When he returned to the deck, all eyes awaited his word. "Gentlemen," he said gravely, "what lies before us is not recorded on any chart of the known world. Perhaps the storm carried us farther than we realize. But one thing is certain. We have entered strange waters. Stay alert." And so, with the sea calm but their hearts restless, Mercury drifted slowly toward those unknown shores, beneath the twin light of two suns shining upon a world no one had ever reported, or at least no one the captain would admit to. Chapter 2: In Unknown Lands. Mercury continued her course into a narrow bay, shielded by cliffs thick with dark vegetation. The men, still weary from the storm, eyed the coast with suspicion. This was no barren, windswept landscape as they had expected, but an archipelago of thorny forests and low mountains that exhaled mist as if they were breathing. Dr. Whitefield, who had at last secured his place on the voyage despite military tensions, was the first to request a landing. He went ashore with several sailors in a small boat. The ground they touched was soft and spongy, carpeted with moss and twisted roots. The air carried a pungent odor of sulfur and wet iron, mixed with something acrid and unfamiliar. In the deeper hollows of the soil, there glowed a faint orange tint. But most unsettling of all was the sky. The familiar sun still shone above, yet to the southwest, low and unmoving, burned a second red sun. Unlike the first, it did not rise or fall. It hung suspended, watching them like a vast, unblinking eye. Some likened it to a perpetual fire. The sea reflected its glow, staining the bay in crimson tones, until by dusk, the waters looked like an ocean of blood. That night, gathered on deck, the men argued. Some claimed it was merely a distant volcano. Others whispered of omens, naming it the Eye of Fire or the Son of the Dead. Myths and fear filled the air. At last, Captain Harlix, who had kept his silence, stood and spoke. "I know what you are all thinking. That glow recalls the chronicles of the Spaniards who named the southern tip of South America Tierra del Fuego. Magellan and his crew saw bonfires lit by the natives on the coasts and believed the whole land was burning. This must be related. Keep calm. I was expecting it." The sailors exchanged uneasy glances. Some muttered, "So the captain knew?" "But understand this well," he continued. "This is not Tierra del Fuego, lands at the southernmost end of Argentina. Not remotely. We are not in the Magellan Straits, nor near Ushuaia. What lies before us does not belong to any chart. By rights, we should be in Antarctica at this moment. The silence fell heavy upon the deck. No one dared reply, for each of them felt it too. They had been dragged into an impossible place, beyond words or reason. When Whitefield and the others returned from their landing, they recorded what they had seen in their notebooks: strange trees, endless fields of flowers they could not classify. The vegetation seemed entirely unknown. They observed no birds, no animals, only a few fruits hanging from towering trees that defied identification. The group decided to spend the night aboard and plan a more thorough expedition the next day. A few begged to return home, but retreat was out of the question, especially as the fog still wrapped them tightly, thick as a wall, even through the night. Yet night never fully came. The red sun kept the darkness at bay, casting its eerie glow alongside the familiar sun that refused to vanish. One sailor swore he saw other suns flickering briefly in the sky, as if dancing before disappearing. No one believed him, but by then doubt gnawed at everyone. After what they had witnessed, nothing could be dismissed. Chapter 3: The Unexpected End. The following day, the captain and his officers once again attempted to establish radio contact, but it was useless. The static remained unbroken. The fog had thickened even further, and nothing could be seen around them, not even the nearby island that had lain so close the day before. Suddenly, the compasses began to function again, though when they advanced it became clear that they were not navigating the same waters. The sea had changed color, no longer calm but restless, and the island had vanished. The radar flickered back to life, yet its readings placed them in a position they could not understand. The captain gathered his senior men, Whitefield among them, and tried to explain what he was seeing. Mercury now lay off the coast of Argentina, though how or why was impossible to know, for the ship had never moved from those strange islands far to the south. No one had felt so much as a shift during the night. The vessel had not sailed. The red sun was gone, and yet, when they compared the faint outline of the coast ahead with their nautical charts, it matched the Gulf of San Matias in the Argentine province of Rio Negro. The crew was stunned. The ship drew near to shore, and preparations began for disembarkation. The radios were still dead. They could not signal the coast, and fear grew that they might be taken for an enemy vessel and fired upon. For this reason, a small boat was ready to approach cautiously. But before they could launch it, something happened. The waters around them began to bubble violently, smoke rising from the ocean itself. The sailors alerted the captain, who immediately cancelled the descent. A suffocating heat spread through the air, and panic rippled through the men. None could understand how they had come to Argentina overnight, nor why the sea now boiled beneath them. The captain tried to steady them, but terror spread when a dark, triangular craft surged out of the ocean and hovered above the ship. Panic consumed the crew. Some ran wildly across the deck. Others fell to their knees in prayer. For a moment, chaos reigned. A few even rushed to the rails, ready to throw themselves into the sea, but the heat radiating from the waves was unbearable. The water itself was boiling. Then came the light, first blinding white, then deep red, pouring over the vessel. One by one, the men froze where they stood, paralyzed, their eyes, the only part of them still able to move, darting wildly in terror as they tried to see what would come next. From the Argentine coast came the sound of gunfire, first hesitant, then a full volley. Bullets hissed over the ship, some striking the sea, others the black triangular object above them. No official explanation was ever given for why they opened fire, whether they mistook the ship for an intruder or simply reacted to the sight of the hovering craft. In an instant, the triangular vessel plunged back into the ocean, vanishing into the depths. And Mercury itself disappeared as well, swallowed by a new rolling fog. Witnesses on shore claimed they had seen the US flag and reported what they had observed. Washington, however, dismissed the account as impossible. They insisted that the vessel had already been found abandoned near the Antarctic Peninsula in 1954, its crew missing. The Argentine officers who reported it were shaken. They described the ship in detail and forwarded the report immediately. Yet from the United States came only denials. Stranger still, Argentine records insisted they had sighted the vessel not in 1954, but 27 years later in 1981. How could that be possible? The Mercury crew, which had vanished before Argentine eyes in 1981 off the coast of the Gulf of San Matias, was never seen again. Nor was there ever an explanation for what befell her captain and crew on their secret 1954 voyage. The mystery was sealed away by higher powers and never again spoken of publicly. The United States flatly denied ever losing a vessel in Argentine waters, let alone in 1981, though Argentine officers insisted they had seen it with their own eyes, their radars confirming its presence. Soon after, silence fell, and the matter disappeared from all official discourse. The last known report was that the vessel had been found encased in Antarctic ice in 1954, silent and lifeless. No bodies were recovered, only Dr. Whitefield's notebooks and a few sailors' journals. The case was closed, the men declared lost. There remain, however, two accounts from retired military officers. Both claim that the crew was seen somewhere deep beneath the sea, inside what appeared to be an advanced fortress hidden beneath the Gulf of San Matias. None of this was ever confirmed. Only Whitefield's journals remain, a terrible testimony, suppressed for decades, yet one more piece in the endless web of mysteries that shrouds Antarctica.